Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2018 family comedy Instant Family. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on this film, I would like to give a special shout out to Sean for requesting this review. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you'd like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal or to my Patreon. The link to both is in the video description down below, and I will try to get your requests as soon as I possibly can. Oh, and I'm also going to apologize in advance if you hear anything in the background, because apparently my parents decided this is the time to be like crazy loud for some reason. It's kind of fitting. I'm talking about this family movie. So, and I gotta, deal with some of the stuff that comes with, having a family. But it's fine. But anyway, this film is directed by Sean Anders, and if you ask me, he's one of those directors who is a dime a dozen. Like he's the kind of director who can come in and give you a adequate and average performance and nothing more than that. And for a movie like this that's not really trying to win any awards, not really trying to be particularly visually challenging, that's fine. That's okay. This is in the same vein as some of his other work, like the Daddy's Home movies. I think he did a better job in this than in something like That's My Boy or Horrible Bosses 2. But it's not the kind of direction that's gonna really leave a lasting impression. It's fine. The framing is fine. The shot selection is fine. The way that he utilizes a few angles here and there is decent enough. I think that it's got a decent amount of mirth and some fun energy in it at times, especially when it comes to the scenes where the new parents are having to corral and deal with their kids and struggle with the kids and their different personalities and so on and so forth. So I think the direction does match the energy that the kids are bringing to those scenes. So I think that that's definitely a plus. And I feel that overall, like, speaking of the kids, I think Sean does a good job getting some pretty authentic, pretty solid performances out of the kid actors, which is not always the easiest thing to do. I've seen other directors completely fumble the ball and just completely be lost when it comes to getting good quality performances out of the kid actors. But this is not one of those instances. So I think Sean does a pretty good job with that, and and for the most part, just maintaining things and just keeping things steady. Whether it's steady performances from most of his cast, or steadiness on his end when it comes to the camera work. So the direction I think is definitely not anything that's particularly amazing, but it's fine for the kind of movie that this is. The script by John Morris and Sean Anders. Here's the thing about this screenplay. It does absolutely nothing to elevate itself above any of the other films in this already played out, tired subgenre of a couple who's never had kids, having kids, in this instance, not having them through a birth or anything like that, but having them via adoption. But it's the same thing. They are dealing with everything that comes with being a first time parent, but this time around it's with multiple kids at once. And they're not like babies, so you have to deal with a teenager and two other kids of varying ages. So that's really all that this story or the script has that's somewhat different. But even then, there's been plenty of other films in the subgenre that have done the same thing, with a family, an instant family, so to speak, that has different members of the family that are of different ages. So that's not necessarily anything unique either. And there's just a lot of predictable beats in terms of the teenager being angsty in cliched fashion and being closed off and then being a problem until they eventually realize that her new family does actually love her. And the other kids, they have their varying issues. The little girl is hyperactive and anti-authority initially and wants her way and doesn't react well when she doesn't get her way. And the older brother, he is for some reason just always anxious and freaked out over every little thing. So if he makes a mistake, he gets super anxious about it and shuts down. And so it's very played out in that regard in terms of the way that a lot of these kids are. I know that it's based on a true story, so that's probably why things are the way that they are. But it just makes for a script and a story that's ultimately at the end of the day kind of dull, despite the fact that it does have its heart in the right place. It's got a good message to it, but it is one of those things where you've been here, you've seen this play out before many, 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 many times over in other movies. And as a comedy, it's not really that funny. So that's the other thing. Like, there's a lot of repeated gags. Like, there's this repeated joke with this woman who is going to the adoption classes because she wants to adopt a kid who could wind up becoming a athlete and make her lots of money, and they just dunk on this woman the entire movie, and it's just a very lame joke. It wasn't even really that funny the first time, and then they just keep going with it. And there's other stuff involving like the people who work for the adoption agency who say some comments here and there that are supposed to be funny, but I didn't laugh once. Of course, you have this stuff involving the couple and their adopted kids and everything that's going on with that in terms of them having to deal with their craziness or them being delusional at the start and saying that everything's great. I think we got the good ones, and then they have to deal with the hell that comes with having adopted kids or kids in general until they figure things out. You know, the Wagners. You got this stuff involving the family, the Wagner family, like the other people who are just, the in-laws or the family of the wife and the family of the husband, and how all of that comes into play, and how they react with the kids and how they react with the couple, and very cliched in that regard. And it's also one of those scripts where it's just stretching things out, and I don't understand why this movie is 2 hours. Like, there is no reason for that at all. I know that's with the end credits. Even if you take the end credits out, it's too long. It does not need to be an hour and 40 something minutes or an hour and 50 something minutes. It doesn't need to be even remotely close to that. This is a very simple story about a couple adopting 3 kids. That's all it is. You don't need to stretch things out so much. There's also some moments where it kinda seems like they're trying to shoehorn some message in there that's kind of forced, especially when it comes to some of the scenes with the adoptive agency employees. And they do this whole drama with the birth mother of the adopted kids. She gets out of prison, and then she does this whole thing where it looks like she's going to want her kids back, and the adopted parents, they screw up and they get in trouble, so now they look bad and it doesn't look good. And of course, that the adoptive parents are still gonna get the kids at the end. It's not like they're gonna wind up going back to their birth mother, who's a consistent convict who has been in and out of the jail system over and over again and is a drug addict. So I didn't really understand the drama there because it didn't really feel like there was any real stakes. You never really thought that the kids were ever gonna go back to the birth mother. So when you have the whole moment where she relapsed and she didn't show up to, you know, get the kids, it's not really that surprising. Also, I guess you could look at it from this perspective that the reason why that was happening is because it was all a setup for the teenage girl to manipulate her mother into doing all of this because she didn't want to be adopted and she just wanted to go through the whole system again because she's a teenager and she's full of angst. I get that. I can see where they're coming from, but I mean, for all of that to just be resolved by a letter, like that's legitimately cheesy. Like I normally don't like to use that word, but that is totally a cheese ball thing. In terms of the script. And it's just there's just a lot of stuff, a lot of notes in this that you're like, "Oh, okay, I see where this is going." Oh, you have the stuff with the teenage girl, and she's sending texts to this guy who's uh, who's older than she is, and she's infatuated with him or wants to, get into his pants, and he wants to do the same with her, and it leads to awkward confrontations, and oh, she gets a dick pic, and then you got Mark Wahlberg saying, "Is that a dick pic?" Yeah, stuff like that that's supposed to elicit like a crazy amount of laughs, but instead I'm just like, eh. Or the scene where Wahlberg is dressing down who he thinks is a boyfriend, but it's just a nerdy kid from school that the teenager is using to pull one over on the adopted parents. Or, the stuff involving the grandmother and everything involving Sandy and how she handles things with the kids versus the adoptive parents. And there's just a lot of stuff that you're just like, okay, this is a very predictable, tired beat. Oh, the stuff where, oh, it looks like they're not able to get through to their kids and they want to give up and then they figure something out and they make progress. And or you have the typical stuff where the kids won't say mommy. They'll say daddy, but they won't say mommy. Uh it's just one of those things where it's exactly what I expected it to be going in, but at the same time, I kinda wanted a little bit more than that because of the fact that it's 2018 when this came out. Like, if you're just gonna deliver, like, the bare minimum story-wise, like, that's not really good enough for me. Like, there's tons of mediocre family movies out there. We didn't need another one. Like, provide a reason for this to exist other than it's based on a true story and it's got a nice message to it and good heart and it's about adoptive parents and about adopting kids and it's trying to bring awareness to that and everything and that's fine. There are plenty of other movies that have brought awareness to adoption. This isn't the first film to do that. It's not like it's breaking any new ground in that regard. Also, a lot of the comedy is very awkward based, which I'm not a fan of. I don't really like a lot of awkward comedy. So I think if you're into the awkward comedy, then maybe this might be funnier for you. But for me, I rarely ever laughed while watching this. Like, the whole scene with Joan Cusack's character, who's this random neighbor who shows up at some point at the end of the movie and is super clingy, that was just cringe-inducing. Like, I didn't laugh once at any of that. Just like I didn't laugh at any of the scenes involving, Sharon and Karen, the social workers, or or Jan, Ellie's mother, or the stuff with the bickering relatives, like, which you're like, oh great, typical stuff going right there, with Jan's sister and her husband. So it's sweet and charming at points. I did like the whole bit where Mark Wahlberg's character, Peter, he uses his fixer upper that he's doing at this, like, a pretty rough looking house, and he's working on a house flip, and I like that he uses that as a way to connect with the teenage girl, with Lizzie. I like that, by having her express her frustrations by doing some demo work. I like that. It was kind of predictable, but I still liked it, and I liked the message behind that. I also like the moments between Ellie, when she's trying to connect with Lizzie, with the hairbrush, and some of the other, bits here and there, between her character and the kids. Honestly, Lizzie's character came across the strongest out of all of the kids, and Ellie came across the strongest in terms of the writing for me when it comes to the two parents. Um, but that might also because I'm a bit biased because I'm a big Rose Byrne fan, and I actually thought she was actually pretty decent in this. But yeah, it's just one of those movies where it starts pretty much the way that you think it's gonna start, and then it ends exactly the way that you think it's gonna end. There aren't any surprises, there aren't anything, that's gonna come out of nowhere, or, uh, provide anything that's any different than any of these other kind of movies, and I think, in some way, that's a positive, that's a plus, because sometimes you don't want anything more than that. And I think there's definitely an audience for this, and I think, families are definitely a good audience for this movie. Uh, and it's not just because there's family in the title. I think it is a good family film, to reinforce some good family values and other stuff like that. And it's relatively inoffensive and earnest and heartwarming at times. So I think that's definitely something that can appeal to a lot of people who are into that kind of comedy. I'm more of a guy who wants my comedy to be a little bit sharper, and this really wasn't that kind of comedy for me. And even if it's not sharper, at least have like a cast that can make up for some of the deficiencies of the script. And speaking of the cast, I don't really feel that this cast did that. Like, it's a okay cast, but when your headliner and one of your biggest stars is Mark Wahlberg, you're already at a disadvantage, if you ask me. And I know some people are gonna disagree with me wholeheartedly, and that's fine. I think Mark Wahlberg is a very mid actor. I think he's honestly a bit overrated as an actor. Even his more serious roles, I don't really think were that amazing. I think he's definitely better when he's doing a serious role, especially when it comes to like an R-rated drama, or when he's able to just kind of utilize his charisma in an ensemble cast, like The Italian Job, or earlier roles when he was just taking more risks, like Fear. But other than that, like, I think he's just incredibly bland and one note. This is another performance from him that is just so bland and so boring, and just the same beats that you have seen from Mark Wahlberg and his Funky Bunch for a decade or more. The guy he has no extra gear anymore as an actor. He has one gear and that's it. And he's going to ride it till the wheels fall off. And I think for some people it works. For me, it doesn't. It doesn't come across as authentic charm anymore. It comes across like he's just there because he's an available everyman, a kind of guy you can cast if you want to cast some inoffensive white guy to be the lead in your movie. Like that's really how I feel about Mark Wahlberg. He's white bread personified, and I think an actor with the more charisma, more personality, something fresh, something new to bring to it definitely would have helped this movie. Because he just brings the film down in a lot of moments involving his character. I don't buy him when it's supposed to be an emotional scene. I don't buy it when he's supposed to be angry. I don't buy it when he's supposed to be all heartwarming and full of charm. I don't buy it at all. Like it just comes across like a facade from Mark Wahlberg. But Rose Byrne, on the other hand, I thought she did a really good job. Like she did the best that she could to carry this film as far as she could possibly carry it. And I think this film in a lot of ways is at least okay and just a decent movie because of all the heavy lifting that she does. Because it's not like she has a ton of chemistry with Mark Wahlberg, to be honest, but she just kind of makes it work. And her character has a lot more nuance to her when it comes to her performance. I think she's funnier when it comes to some of the scenes involving her character and some of the more awkward attempts at comedy. And I definitely did buy the moments of bonding between her and the kids. I bought a little bit of it too with Pete. I have to admit, Mark Wahlberg, I bought it a little bit when it comes to some of the bonding with his kids, with the adoptive kids, but it still doesn't change that he's white bread. Um, the rest of the cast, though, I mean, the kids, they were good. I thought the kids were pretty solid, especially Isabela Merced as Lizzie. I thought she did a really good job playing that character. It's kind of a difficult role because the character is portrayed as not really a very likable character at all initially. So that's not always necessarily the easiest thing to pull off, and I think she did a good job with that, and also showed some moments with her character where you actually were a little sympathetic towards her, and she showed some genuine emotion, and actually seemed like she cared and brought some real passion to the performance. I think Gustavo Escobar is one, and Julianna Gamiz as Lita. I also feel they did some good work as well as the other siblings. Um, they did what they were asked to do, and did a really good job when it comes to what they were tasked with as child actors. Now, Octavia Spencer and Tig Notaro, on the other hand, especially Tig Notaro, like Tig Notaro, I thought was terrible in this. Like her deadpan, she's trying to be a deadpan comic, but it doesn't work here. She just sounds like she's bored, and Octavia Spencer is trying, but the lines that she's given and the scenes that she's been given, like there's not a whole lot that she can do with it. Like the two of them, they're supposed to be this dynamic duo, this comic relief duo throughout the movie at points, and most of the time their bits fell flat. Uh, Even when they were supposed to be serious, it wasn't necessarily that effective, especially from Tig. Like her acting in this was awful. Like she was really bad. Um, Margo Martindale as Grandma Sandy, like, it was a lively performance. I'll give her that. Julie Hagerty, it was nice to see her again, from Airplane, but given a nothing role and just kind of just a very weak character overall. Just playing this naive mother who's just completely clueless. Um, Yeah, you got Michael O'Keefe, who is in this as Ellie's father, and just says like a few lines, and that's about it. You got Eliza Schlesinger here, and Tom Segura, and Alan Rachel, and the three of them are just given not a whole lot to work with this script, and so their performances are pretty flat. Joan Cusack is in it for like a quick cameo and is just annoying at the end of the movie. I like her as an actress, but this wasn't it. Definitely was not one of her bright spots. You also have Valente Rodriguez, who was in the George Lopez show, who played Ernie. He's in this as the judge of the adoption court. He's basically just playing Ernie again. It's not anything different than what you already saw in the George Lopez show. So yeah, the performances, I mean, from the kids are pretty good. Rose Byrne is good. But everything else is just very much a mixed bag. And Mark Wahlberg, he's just not good. He's not terrible, but he's not good. I don't understand the praise he got for this performance. I really don't. And the cinematography by Brett Powlack is okay. It's decent enough for this kind of movie. That it looks nice. But the editing I wanted to point out, because I thought it was actually one of the brightest spots of this movie. The editing by Brad Wilhite. And the reason for that is because it had some really great transitions. I thought it had some really clever, really well executed transitions throughout the film. So I want to give the editor a lot of credit. And I think the way he edited the montages was also really good of the kids and their various antics. Now, the music by Michael Andrews, saccharine sweet, forgettable, uh, pretty much what you would expect for this kind of movie. Nothing more. Even the songs that they used for the soundtrack really weren't anything that you haven't heard a million times. Like nothing's gonna stop us now. Really, that's the song you're gonna go with at the end. I like that song, but like that's been used so much in these kind of feel good movies that it in itself is now a cliche. So yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, you're being a little too hard on it. It's just a kids comedy. It's a family comedy." Yeah, I know, but like, Three Men and a Baby is a family comedy, and that's funnier than this, and that's just as endearing, if not even more so. And there are other comedies that involve, kids and adults that are just more interesting. Like, for instance, Three Fugitives. Like, I didn't think it was a great movie with Nick Nolte and Martin Short, but at least it was doing something a little bit different with the plot, with the kid being involved. There's a lot of instances where you can have a family film that's intended for a family audience that brings more to the table than something like Instant Family. So yeah, every now and then I'm fine with some instant ramen, but it's not my go-to. And that's how I feel about Instant Family when it comes to family comedies.